Thank you, Matthias. Thank you, everybody, for being here. And it's a pleasure to welcome you to the first OEGSL in 2022-2023 with Real Semmel. Und heute sprechen wir Englisch, weil der erste Gast dieses Jahres Momchil
Panayotov.
Thank you, Momchil. Is, and he's going to tell us something about avalanches in Bulgaria. Before we start with the presentation of Momchil, we are very happy to welcome all of you. Here, Christoph is together with me, and we can even do a full schwenk over the seminar room with some guests here in our hybrid meeting. We have a little bit of drinks and Fleischkast. If you would like to do the same in another location, contact us. The goal is to make the Semmelnare not only online again, but like maybe have a couple of hybrid or semi-hybrid meetings along the way. So we really like to welcome all the guests from everywhere else, all over Austria, but also further away. We already see that we have like more than 20 people in the Zoom, and also some people in YouTube. For the people that are in Zoom, you can also ask questions by raising your hand. We're gonna try to moderate that a little bit. For the people in the room, we have a question desk where you can also go on. We have to mute in between, not to annoy everybody else. And on YouTube, you can also always use the chat function, and we're gonna try to sneak your questions in. So with this, enjoy your lunch food. Momchil, thank you very much for being our first guest of the season, and really looking forward to look a little bit east and see what avalanches are doing there. Momchil.
Okay. So hello, everybody from me. Thanks for this short introduction. I'm Momchil Panayotov. A little bit difficult to pronounce always this name, also for Bulgarians. I have some associations of work or just cooperation. I'm actually working in the University of Forestry in Sofia. My main job is forests. So I'm teaching students. But also I'm one of the people who are behind the Bulgarian Extreme and FreeSkiing Association, BEFSA, which is an NGO already, I would say, old NGO, 20 years. More than 20 years. Also, I'm part of the Mountain Rescue Service of Bulgaria, which is part of the Red Cross, I will mention later on. I'm also part of the newly found Bulgarian Avalanche Association, which I would also mention later on. So, a few words. Where are we? You know, this is the Balkan Peninsula, Sofia, and we can see some of the famous mountains around the Rila Mountains, the Pyrenean Mountains. They are in Bulgaria, and down in Greece, you can see also I put a note where the Olympus Mountains are. And these are actually the three highest mountains on the Balkan Peninsula. And we have the highest mountain peak, which is Mount Musala, 2,925 meters. This is in the Rila Mountains. And by the way, they have a meteorological station up there, which just celebrates 90 years from its opening. I'm really sorry, I forgot to put one picture. It looks curious. But we have some high mountains. And of course, this means that when there is snow, we have also avalanches. Just a few images to show you. This is the White Couloir in Rila Mountains. Very, very crazy place, I would say. Very interesting place also for rock climbing, but for skiing it's very, very seldom because it's too dangerous. Usually it's a south-facing slope and really problematic one. This is Botev Peak in Starotlanina Mountains, a mountain which is not that high, but has some quite steep slopes and also very nasty weather conditions with lots of winds and lots of problems, of course. Very notorious mountain. A lot of people have died there because of bad weather, poor visibility, avalanches, everything. So pretty difficult mountain in winter time. These are the Pyrenean Mountains, which are actually the most popular for winter tourism. And here on the image, maybe you can see some of the ski runs, not that easy to see on this image. And here it's a better view to the two highest peaks in Pirin Mountains, Vihren Peak and Kutulu Peak, both of them above 2,000 meters. By the way, we have Kutulu 1 and Kutulu 2, so we have also Bulgarian K2. These slopes, just to give you an idea, 1,000 meters of vertical drop. So this means really quite big potential for avalanches, and sometimes they are quite nasty. Also, look from the Pirin Mountains, one of the regions which is further in the mountain, less frequently visited by people. Another view from Malovice, from Lila Mountains, very famous valley for winter hiking and mountaineering. I would say the most famous valley for backcountry in Bulgaria. And now some things about avalanches. First few on historical situation. Bulgaria is a bit different to the Alps in the terms of that we don't have villages in the mountains. People visited mountains mostly in the summer. So until the 20th century, we have very few notes related to damages from avalanches, mostly to monastery buildings. The first recorded note is from 1822, close to the famous Ril Monastery, when a building from the monastery was destroyed by an avalanche. We also have some few notes about death of people who traveled through the mountains in winter and were reached by the snow. From the 1930s, we have more information, like people who started visiting more regularly for tourism. This is the beginning of more active tourism in Bulgaria, but also forest workers who were in the forests. Some of them died, unfortunately, due to avalanches. And for example, this newspaper on the back is exactly written about foresters who died in an avalanche and others who were lucky to escape an avalanche. Then in the 1950s, we had an avalanche period similar to the Winter of Terror in the Alps. We had a lot of snow back then. So there were a lot of damages in the forest, also damages to people who were working in mines in the mountains. And this was the reason for kind of a little bit more attention from authorities back in those days. There is one very special year, 1965, in which we had the biggest mountaineering tragedy in Bulgaria. 11 people died in one accident. It was a very small avalanche, but unfortunately it carried a big alpinist group to a death trap in a small gully, and a lot of people were buried. Then this became quite a famous case. This was also kind of push for some activities of the Mountain Rescue Service, some development, some more interest in this topic. But still authorities do not pay a lot of attention. This is one of the few cases when authorities actually were interested in this situation, because this specific avalanche buried a road which leads to a small mountain resort, and some people were in the resort, so they could not escape, they could not leave, and then of course this becomes a problem. But the current state is we have no government or other official engagement with the avalanche problem. This is pretty much left to people who are interested in it. So mostly institutions, media, people are interested after some accident. And there is usually a lot of noise, I would say a miracle for a day. Everybody wants to know what happened, how it happened, to have an interview, this media type of interest, and then everything dies within few days. Everybody forgets about it. So at the same time, we have constantly growing freeride community. We have increasing interest in winter mountaineering activities. More and more people want to go in the mountain in winter. Many of them don't have background in the mountains, so they start to discover the mountains just now. People, for example, who are not born in cities which are close to the mountains, and they become interested when they are 25 or 35 years of age. So for them, everything is completely new. And that's why I would say that we definitely have an avalanche problem. So how does it look from the human life perspective? This is a small graph that I tried to compose while writing a book some years ago. And the blue lines are the affected people, people who are participating, I would say, in avalanche accident. And the yellow line are the dead people. We can see that in the last years, we have quite many blue lines. This means more registered accidents, but we fortunately have quite little yellow lines. This is a small number of dead people. But still, we have, I would say, every year some casualty. Unfortunately, some years more than one person. And some years we are lucky, but this is kind of exception. And this small picture you see here, almost by a miracle, a 12-year boy almost died in a very small avalanche here. But this is just an example of how people get into trouble even in places where they don't think there could be an avalanche. Current changing patterns in time. In the past, we had more rare accidents with many involved people. Like if you see this high blue line in the 1950s, this was a huge group of tourists that was affected by an avalanche, but only few people died there. And currently we have increase of interaction with avalanches. Much more people go in the mountain, much more free riders. We have more accidents, more interactions with avalanches, but luckily for us, we have few fatalities, which is, I think, the most important after all. Two graphs that try to show this before 2000 and after 2000, as far as I could get the statistics. So we have this big green pie in the mountains. Before 2000, it was mostly mountaineering, but we also had this orange pie, which is workers, people who work in mountains. They were quite affected in the past. While if we look after 2000, we have the green is again people who go on hiking activities, but we have a lot of skiers, also snowboarders, and these three groups are the majority of accidents after 2000. We don't have any more workers in the mountains for many reasons. We have actually, but they are in the resorts. They don't interact so much with the avalanches. And we have small other groups which are affected, but still not so frequently. Who, when, why? Mostly we have slab avalanches, which are due to winds. Our climate is such that we don't have usually persistent weak layers. We mostly have wind slabs. So this is quite natural that they cause most of the problems. We have fewer accidents in wet snow conditions. This is quite unpleasant weather in the mountain, as you know, or few accidents in big dumps. Usually people are kind of afraid in those days, but we have had several situations also in these cases. We have mostly successful rescues due to friend companion rescue or some miracles. Like we have one case with 4 hours and one case with 5.5 hours. I would mention later on one of the cases, which are the miracles. And recent accidents, most of them are due either to negligence. So people are aware that there is a situation in this day. There is obvious situation, there are signs, but avoid these signs. These are the heuristic traps. But still, we also have accidents with people who really don't understand the problem. So there is also the ignorance situation. Just few cases worth to remember situations. One of them is back in the 1970s, Vituša Mountain, which is situated just above the capital of Bulgaria, just above Sofia. So 3 high school boys finished their rock climbing exercise and decided to go to a nearby hut by crossing this couloir. They were totally unaware that avalanches occur at all. They caused an avalanche, they triggered it. 2 of them were buried, one was outside, luckily, and ran to search for help. Dr. Krasen Demirev, back then he was 16, was found alive by probing after more than 4 hours, actually 4 hours under the snow. The other boy, unfortunately, was dead. And this doctor later on became also a mountain rescuer. He became a very famous heart surgeon who works mostly with kids. So he really paid back for this rescue. Just one of the really very specific, interesting situations. Another situation that I would like to mention, because it was not so typical for us, we had this 2010 avalanche winter, but unfortunately we later on had also 2019, which was quite similar, with very warm winter start. Unfortunately, last years we don't have real winter in December. This very warm winter start usually means less snow in January, which tends to produce these faceted crystals in the snow, very weak snowpack. And then when the first snow comes, people are really very nervous already because of the lack of snow. They rush in the mountain. They don't really care what are the signs. So in this specific year, 2010, just after the first serious snowfall, we had one fatality. Then we had several accidents, luckily without fatalities, then another fatality just several days after. And many natural avalanches, and also several lucky survivals, really lucky survivals in accidents through the whole winter. And one of them I will just show later on, but this is just very small, quick profile in the forest next to an avalanche, within the forest. And as we can see, there is one very weak layer here, which is covered by a thin crust, which is not very solid crust. And this could not hold all the snow that came later on. So this was the situation. Unfortunately, it was not recognized by most people, and this brought a lot of trouble. One of the lucky escapes, this is Vihren Peak. We can see the line of a guide who started his descent. He was aware that there was potentially a problem, but was under the pressure of the group. So there was a foreign group he was guiding, also a foreign guide, and they really wanted to ski from this peak. So there was a lot of situation like, okay, we can ski, no problem, don't worry, we think there is no problem. First, he went down tied with a rope. The rope finished. He dig a little bit in the snow. He didn't see obvious problem. He started skiing a little bit, and here he triggered the avalanche. The avalanche turned out to be not so small at all. He was captured up here in the avalanche. Then somewhere here where is the arrow, he was thrown away from the avalanche, probably because he triggered an ABS airbag, probably, but not completely sure for this. Of course, you know, this is never sure. And this is how the whole slope looks. So these are more than 1,000 meters. And he was caught up there in the red arrow. He was thrown away from the avalanche in the orange arrow. And the avalanche later on came in two narrow couloirs, which are really nasty ones. So if he was not lucky to be thrown away from this avalanche, he would probably end dead. So what is going on now? What are our efforts now? Because there is no government engagement, I would say, we try to work within the interested communities, within the freeriders, within the mountaineers, teenagers, and try to organize between ourselves how to do something and not stay and wait. The main focus, of course, is on education. This is mostly done by Bulgarian Extreme and Freeskiing Association, BEFSA, but also mountain guys started doing courses, which is also good because we have an expansion of the people who provide this education. Every year we start with an accessible lecture. We also have some courses, print leaflets. I would later on give a little bit more detail about that. Within the Mountain Rescue Service, of course, we do trainings how to rescue. There is a dog search group, which is, I would say, quite good, but of course, with dogs, you know, they have always the problem that they cannot reach quickly the accident. So mostly they do not find alive people. We have some little research activities I would mention later on. And we try to do kind of awareness products like AIDS classification maps. beacon checkers with some information boards next to them. We try to communicate with authorities to convince them on other activities and stuff like this. And recently, few people found the Bulgarian Avalanche Association, which would be more focused on attempts to establish regular schedules for issuing advisories, especially for the region of Bansku ski resort, which is the most busy ski resorts. And we hope in this way to have another way to tackle this avalanche problem. A few more words about the education activities of BEFSA. They are active for more than 15 years already. Usually we start the season with Avalanche lecture, which is usually the end of November or early December. Then we start in January with 5 or 6 practical courses, avalanche training courses, recreational level, and also first aid and response course. Then we have some other training events which are mostly dedicated to remind people how to use their beacons to give them chance to train. Since few years, we try to make specific education for kids or teenagers because we recognize that they cannot really fit in the normal way of education. Of course, we try to publish a lot of leaflets, books. I would show later on few images. We try to translate interesting products which we see from other countries. If we like it, we try to find a way to translate it also in Bulgarian, because of course we don't want to invent the hot water again and again. We had a very nice video series with short thematic movies some years ago. They were watched by many people. I was quite happy about that. And of course, we try to communicate through media to issue some warnings when there are obvious signs of problems, to provide some interviews, open the topic, I would say, and also provide some safety for competitions. Like if there is a free ride competition, usually people who are in this organization, or they are mostly also mountain guides, we try to support the organization of these competitions for the security. And here just an image. These are two happy guys. One of them is me after 3 days of minus 20 degrees of training in an avalanche education course. And we are lucky that we could do our program and at the same time survive without much frosts. These are just a few of the books. You can recognize probably in the center the famous Safety Academy of Orthovox, which was translated also in Bulgarian. We worked with the local importer of Orthovox and could manage to do that. But also a couple of books. The newest one is the right hand one, my right, yeah, also your right should be. And just here, one of the old rescuers reading the book and saying, I find some interesting stuff in this book, which for me was really nice. If he finds something interesting, then it's not a bad book. So the newly found Avalanche Association, we really try to set up regular observations with it. Also, we try to maintain a web platform in which people can share observations if they're even if they are not professional. But this thing helps a lot, and we try to support other events there, but this is still at the beginning. So still experience is gained, still we wonder how to really establish it, because it's also an effort from people. It's not supported by government really for the moment. And we try to do it quite much on a volunteer basis, which is not that easy. So we really appreciate very much any kind of sharing of experience from people who have this experience. And we hope there is more development there. Few words also on the Mountain Rescue Service, because I'm also part of it. The Mountain Rescue in Bulgaria is part of the Red Cross, so it's pretty much organized on a volunteer basis. There is a small bunch of professional guys, but they are doing pretty much the general organization of the work. And if there is a bigger rescue operation, volunteers have to step in. The focus is mostly on response, rescue response. There are some education and public outreach activities, But I would say there is no real desire to use the system of people who are in the mountains to use them for observation, which I'm not very happy with. I really hope this can change somehow. I try to be active on this topic. In the last few years, we have improved the way of transport for accidents. We have several locations with really these fast new snowmobiles and people who can use them and to reach very quickly the accident zone. Unfortunately, we don't have helicopter service yet. So this is the most important, as you know, for quick access to accidents. And unfortunately, if the accident is far away, still the main problem is how to reach the accident. So if you are in Bulgaria, you have to be careful not to get into big trouble deep in the mountain. Just a couple of images and mentioning the research activities. This is the region of Bansko ski resort. And this is one of the slopes which causes most troubles recently, because many people access very easily this slope. You can see it's a slope with steep couloirs between forest ridges. And these forests themselves are quite steep also. So there is a lot of avalanche activity in the forest, which people do not recognize. Most people think that if they are inside the forest, then there is no problem. But of course, there could be problem. You can see all these lines in the forest, all of them were produced by avalanches in the past. And here I just outlined one recent avalanche where unfortunately two young men died in 2019. So in this forest, I also try to organize some research activities, try to learn more about avalanche in the past. Also another forest which is very close to this ski resort on the opposite slope. And this is just one image from an avalanche coming down this slope when there were people in the resort. And of course, this is not very nice. Luckily, no injuries. But I really try to force some research activities with the chance that when we have research data, people would be trusting a little bit more when we say them that there are problems. Like this is a map of avalanche activity areas. And I try to show these maps and also other results to people and make them believe that this could be even more dramatic, like situation. In a situation when we don't have a lot of written records, we really have to try to make the trees speak to us. And luckily, the tree rings that trees produce record information about such dramatic events in their life when they were broken by avalanches, mostly broken, but sometimes bent. And I try with several colleagues of mine to read this information, to try to understand, for example, these little images here, when there were some big avalanches, which areas were hit by these big avalanches, and then try to more know about the regime of these avalanches in the past. Like if you look in the lower graph, we can see the number of reacting trees from an avalanche with the blue bars. And in this way, we can have an idea when there was some bigger avalanche which hit more trees, left its sign, like, for example, 1963, 1987, 1996, but we can go back in time for almost 200 years. Of course, the more we go back in time, the less alive trees we have which record this signal. So this is kind of only a few centuries, but this is still not bad. And when we know more about these bigger avalanches, we can then think of what were the usual ones, what were the more unusual, the bigger avalanches, and then we can try to find what could be the parameters of these avalanches and learn more about this situation. Something in which the Alpine countries, including Austria, have a lot of experience with, but we don't have any experience here. So we try to really use also this experience. And just one image, this is a big avalanche coming down this couloir, which was recorded by a video system. And then we have, when we have this record, we can try to also compare to numerical simulations by this, for example, is the RAMS software, which was developed in Davos, in the institute in Davos, but also there are other tools, for example, developed now in Innsbruck. and we try really to use these tools and to learn what could be the avalanches and also show to people, because as I always joke, when people see colorful images like this, they get impressed, and then you can speak to them later on. So I was kind of tricked to say some problem and discuss on it. And I thought, okay, my question would be, could education solve an avalanche problem of a freeride community? The situation we have pretty much here. This image is from just a meeting of people who do training. So this is training the trainers in pretty nasty weather, by the way. The previous day it was raining, which is not nice when you are in the winter in the mountain. But the answer is yes and no. On one side, yes, because we have constant increase of winter sports enthusiasts. We have including free riders. All the time we have more and more and more people, and especially these last 2 years with the COVID situation, we know very well the people who sell free ride skis in Bulgaria, and all of them were saying, we don't have any more skis. We sold out everything. So you can imagine much more people go in the mountain now than even a couple of years ago. But at the same time, we do not have dramatic increase of accidents in the last years, and especially we don't have increase in fatalities, luckily. So this means that there are more people, but accidents remain on the level, which means that people are aware, at least some of them, of the problem, and they really try to avoid this problem. And also, unfortunately, we have to say no also, because despite all kind of efforts, we cannot reach everybody in the mountain with education activities. Some people are just not interested. And the bigger problem is that knowledge is knowledge, but powder is powder. When it's really a great powder day, people freak out, everybody freaks out, and it's very hard to control yourself. As we know, it's much more hard to control yourself than to tell to people that there is a problem. So this is a big problem in days like this. And my personal opinion is that we have to keep on pushing, working both ways. We have to continue with education activities, all kinds of education activities, and in the same time, we have to really become much better into making all kinds of efforts to say that the daily coffee could be really hot, even extremely hot, and could burn you. And this is not because of the chance for lawsuits after that. I use the example with McDonald's lawsuit, but because human life matters, and everybody, really every saved life is worth the efforts. So this was kind of, in short, I would say, hopefully from me, and I would be now happy to answer questions and to participate in some discussion if there is. JT, you are muted if you want to say something.
Yes, now it should work. We had a kind of a technical issue because we're clapping so much. Yeah, thank you very much, Momchil. We have time for some questions. First, thank you so much for giving us this little journey through the Bulgarian winters. And there's already some questions right here, which I just gonna moderate to you. So Frank is asking if there's the operational warning service, and if you what kind of forecast reports or forecast products you actually get in Bulgaria.
As I mentioned, for now we don't have real warning service. We have this Avalanche Association which tries to establish something like this. So mostly for now, the attempt is to provide an advisory or even sometimes a bulletin before the weekend, at least. So we have the weekend is the most busy time, of course. And also when there is obvious problem coming in the situation, we try to also to raise awareness, like publish in groups that are followed by people. Hey guys, please be very careful. We have obvious problem in the next days. Please be careful in these and these slopes. Watch out for this. Make sure you don't go into trouble. So for now, it's much more like this.
But is there any public, so is there any public or private institution, like if you do it in the, or do you do it in the association as an NGO? Or is there like ski resorts that like publish there? So there's no official report, but there's maybe some unofficial products. Who's taking care of them? Who's maintaining this?
Nobody. It's the Avalanche Association is an NGO. So this is pretty much few people who are involved into activities in mountains. They try between themselves to organize this. The resorts, unfortunately, for now, they really try to avoid mentioning that there is a problem next to the resorts, close to the resorts. And this is, I would say, this is the biggest challenge, because if they try to say, we don't have a problem, the national park has a problem. It's not like this, because you have the lifts, and the lifts are bringing the people in the mountain. And then obviously you have to be involved into this.
And there's also no, is there not like the, who's in charge then, because you also showed the simulations and the like damages on infrastructure, who's in charge of road safety or like building codes and hazard mapping and something like this?
There is no hazard mapping for avalanches. Like, avalanches are not recognized as a major problem for the country, because we don't have villages in the mountains. We don't have constantly opened roads in the mountains. If I compare it, our mountains are like deep valleys in the Alps, where you don't have villages. So this is, in winter, it's pretty much left to tourism, not other activities. And that's why there is no really engagement of the government. If there is, for example, we have had situations with some avalanche activities on major roads, which cross some pass in the mountain, which is usually not affected by avalanches, then this is a problem of the road maintenance, but usually they don't have any idea what is going on. Say they just close the whole road and clean whatever happened, and that's it. So unfortunately, authorities do not recognize this as a problem. It's mostly people who are in the problem that recognize this as a problem.
Okay, so pretty much it's left to the people that are annoyed or affected by it, and there's like kind of an inconsistent way to deal with it. Frank, I hope this answered your question. If not, just raise your, you can also use the raise hand function and talk. Actually, that's also completely possible. Also, feel free to use the question pult here in our hybrid room. Barbara Hinterstoiser, she's giving you a hint where to find good contacts at Spoku to exchange some information on tree ring analysis. And Markus Niedermeyer, he's actually asking, what kind of tools are the main tools that you're using? And like, because you also talked, your question of the day was pretty much if avalanche education could solve the avalanche problem in the free ride community. And I think this is really much relating to this, because is there like a standardized tool that you use from like, or do you even have your own tool, or you just use one specific tool, or use everything?
Well, we try to customize whatever we can. Like for the education, we try very much to have a curriculum that is very similar to the recreational levels in the USA and Canada. We like that they have some kind of example curriculum, and we try to cover the same topics, I would say. But we don't have professional avalanche education. This is only recreational level for now. And we are very much pretty open to all kind of nice ideas. So whenever we see something that is really nice, we try to think of, okay, can we use this somehow also in our situation? So we are very happy if somebody provides good examples, know-how. This is very useful for this situation that we have.
And on a technical level, what is your is there a standard of technical education for professional? So because this was more about the public or the recreationalists, but what about professional workers for ski resort, whatever, or engineering? Do you have any standards, or do you have, or even mountain guides? Like what kind of avalanche education levels do you use?
Well, with only with mountain guides, because we don't really have professionals in the resorts that are interested in the topic, unfortunately. And with the mountain guides, they have a little bit more of education. I wouldn't call it really so professional. They have, I would say, more like an advanced recreational level. And those mountain guides who want to get certified in Europe, they have to go the European way. So they have to go also abroad to study this. And they have, I would say, more education due to these reasons. And also the mountain rescue service, people there get more education, but this is on rescue techniques. So I would say that it is the most widespread is recreational level, and then only mountain guides and mountain rescuers get additional level of education for avalanches, but there is no really professional education here, and there are no professionals in the terms of people who are hired to do this job. So for now, there is no real interest in people getting professional education.
And but if you said it's the European way of going abroad, what is the most acknowledged or widespread or famous or well-known, liked technical education that you use in Bulgaria? In the community, not because there's no standards, but do you have certain most wanted education tribes? I don't know.
I'm
Canada,
not sure I really
Canada,
get
America. What kind of course system do Bulgarians use?
The recreational one, I can tell usually how it goes. We start with the first level is very much focused on how to work with devices like avalanche beacons, shovels, stuff like this. Also, we have some first aid response. And then we try to teach people about some basic situations of problems in the snow. So they have to be aware, recognize, and avoid such situations. They also have one very nice case in which we simulate an avalanche and avalanche accident, and they have to participate in this rescue. So they are aware what is this when there is situation of accident. And then the second level, recreational level, we try to go more in the snow. We try to tackle more recognizing situations, and also a little bit on the heuristic traps with the second recreational level. So we try to be focused much more there on what is usually the traps that people go in and how to avoid these traps. So this is the situation, but we don't go so much in detail about the snow studies, for example, because we have learned from our experience that if we want to push too much information in a 3-day mountain course, then people get lost. So only few people who are really interested very much to look in the snow, with them we try to organize something additional and go especially with these people for the snow.
And internationally, which education program is the most liked for technical skills? Canadian, American, Swiss, Austrian, maybe?
For the technical, as I said, only the mountain guides for now are interested, and they are trying to get a license so they can operate in the European Alps mostly. So this is this license mountain guide association. I am not exactly sure how it's pronounced exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but we have, I would say, we have not so high number of people who got this training so far. Like I would say, not more than 15 people, maybe, or even less, who have got this education completely and who have the skills to go and guide groups in the Alps. And locally, our mountain guide training is usually, there is additional level for people who go in winter with skis. So they have to receive one more additional year. And the focus there is more on snow situations. So they have to know more about this. But I wouldn't say they are really professional mountain guides yet. Some of them, yes, but most of them not yet.
Okay, then Matthias Granik, he has another question concerning back to more the engineering side of it. Who's responsible in the end if or whether, for example, new ski lift or whatever you build is safe or not? Like who's doing the checks and who has the final responsibility? Because you also showed the example where you are observing this powder snow avalanches for years, just to raise awareness that it maybe not be safe, but who's responsible for it?
Yes, this is very unpleasant what I have to say. When this resort was built, I think nobody was responsible. And they recognized that there is a problem later on. So now they try to think what to do possibly. And now there is also a few of these couloirs have Gazak system installed, which is not completely solving the problem, as we know, because these are really big avalanches. So unfortunately, back then when the resort was designed, because the first design was in the 1980s, then it was designed to be away from these problem terrains. And the new development happened in 2004. There was some external company which did the planning, but I don't think they were so aware of potential avalanche problems. Officially, the national park should have responded, but they obviously also didn't know that there could be a problem. So I would say in this specific case, nobody was really responsible for this. And this is now an unpleasant situation because it's not important who would be blamed now. If there is a problem, it's important not to have the problem. But unfortunately, we don't have, for avalanches, we don't have a real system for responsibility to make like zonation. So it's not like in Austria or Switzerland where you have to have this technical zonation in which you can say, okay, here you cannot build anything. We don't have this for avalanches. We have it for floods, I would say, but not for avalanches.
Okay, thanks, Momchil. There's another question by Markus Niedermeyer saying, what kind of decision-making tools do you use in your education? Is it stop or go, snow card, or others like we use or we know from the US or Canada, Evaluator, etc.?
Well, we try to customize, I would say, because much of these tools require that you have the information for the avalanche bulletin, like input information. And when you don't have this information, then you have to pretty much rely on other sources of information which are always not available. So I would honestly say, for our situations, I don't like ready tools. I try much more to force people to think, to build this mentality in their heads, much more like the 3x3 method, where you are required to think what's going on in the mountain. Because I think this is giving more results, like not using a tool like a black box, but thinking on everything that is behind this tool. But I like very much a stop or go, and I am thinking if it's possible to translate it to Bulgarian, because I like very much the way the information is organized. It's very, one of the level is very simple, it's very intuitive, so I would probably be very happy if I can get it translated into Bulgarian and have it here also.
Perfect, thanks. And then Frank Baumbach is asking whether the mountain rescue service is professionally organized or voluntary. I think you had that in your slides, but can you comment on that again, please?
Yeah, it's mixed. We have few professional people who are close to the ski resorts. And then we have another large volunteer group. Like if I have to give an example, Bansko Ski Resort is with a lot of people who are hired professionally, because they have all the time they have problem on the ski runs. And few people of them are also ready all the time to respond also outside the ski runs. And this is the resort where they can respond professionally very fast. But most of the other rescue situations, the reliance is on volunteers. So if it is not an avalanche accident, but some other kind of accident where there have to be search and rescue operation, or people have to be carried for hours and hours, then it's volunteers mostly. So it's a mixed.
Cool, thanks.
Yeah. Yeah, I see the Dendrology here, it's mentioned. I know about it. We also, I mentioned that we try to now organize to make maps of this avalanche terrain exposure heights, because I think this is quite meaningful and easy for some people to just see as map. So we try to establish, to expand, because we have several areas for which we made these maps, and we try to make it now for more areas. So we are pretty open to adapt everything that potentially could be used in our situation.
Cool, thanks. So, Momchil, you covered really a wide area of interest and also of activities. JT just said to me what he's not doing down there in Bulgaria. He's involved in everything. So everything that happens in Bulgaria goes through Momchil, I guess, in terms of avalanches at least. So last chance here in this room to ask the master of avalanches in Bulgaria a question. If not, I would take the closing question. Good, I go. You said that before the weekend, you, especially through your Freeride organization, you issue some media advisories on upcoming dangers. How does that look like? What's your specific approach to tackle down the freeride community?
Well, it depends. Sometimes it's just a text advisory, and sometimes, for example, in Bansko ski area, where the Avalanche Association is more active, we try to use this visual graphic way of presentation, where avalanche bulletins are presented, like have above tree line area and forest exposures. So have this graphical interface also. But this is only for the region of Bansko and not always possible to make it. But this is kind of the avalanche bulletin style of presenting. And if there is some problem, like for example, everywhere we expect wind slaps, then we try also to have simply also text, like big letters, careful, attention, strong wind is coming, snowfall is coming, on these and these slopes we expect problem, please avoid, for example. So not always it's possible to make a real graphic interface. But we like very much this, and we try to go in this way. So if it is meant to look like a bulletin at one point, it's good to have it like a bulletin.
So not making a bulletin, but making it look like a bulletin. This is maybe the future idea to really make it a bulletin.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Momchil, for all the info and this view in Bulgarian avalanches. I think this is motivating everybody already on a first post-COVID ski trip. And maybe also to contribute there. And I think there's a lot more questions. I think we should actually talk about how to combine technical standards, because we are also in need for them and you are in need for them, and not everybody should do their own stuff, and maybe collaborating on something like this. For now, I would just like to thank you and also say goodbye to everybody who was there for the first OEGSL schnee.semmelnar in the season 2022-23. The next one is gonna happen at, I think, the 7th of November, same time, same place. So online and hybrid with food. It's gonna be with SATS, Alpine Technology or Avalanche Control, and they're gonna present a new way of remote avalanche control without explosives, which I think is gonna be pretty interesting. So far, thank you to everybody, especially thank you to Momchil for being here, and see you soon.
Yep. And I would also thank very much. And if somebody is really willing to travel to Bulgaria and share some experience, we would be really very thankful, very glad to welcome here. And for us, it's really very, very good if all kind of experiences shown and shared, and we will be really very grateful if somebody wants to travel around here, or
Thank
if
you,
we can
Momchil.
come. Bye.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Ciao.